me clearly. America is not a racist country.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's an update on this story for Josephine Wright. And, she's still in her battle with developers to keep her home and her property, which they're trying to cheat her out of and trying to drive her out. And we already know historically they do this to Black folks. They do this to keep you from having generational wealth to pass down. So, what they do is whenever they need something built, they will target an area where our people are dominant in. And then they decide to come over there to uproot your lives. You notice they never go to a Chinatown and do this or anywhere else. So the battle is still on, and she's getting a lot of support, and I'm glad she is. All right, so the Reverend Elijah Smalls Jr. once grew okra, butter beans, and other vegetables in the neighborhood where his family has lived near South Carolina coast since not after the Civil War. So they've been there for a long time. That was before $500,000 homes in a nearby subdivision overwhelmed the drainage system. Yeah, it's all done to drive you out. That's all. This is historic. They've been doing this forever to our folks. You can go all through the history to see where people left their homes and they would get the bulldozers out and bulldoze the houses down to get rid of you. Or the city will appoint an area where they want to build something in and everybody in the area have to leave without being compensated. They've been doing this forever. Rotten asses. So runoff meant the sewers now were like pools, all right, in these people backyards, making it impossible to even garden anymore. Smalls and his relatives were among many of the original families still living in a historic settlement community around Charleston. People who have been enslaved at Phillips Plantation bought patches of the land to secure their future, and only to get it uprooted, you know? And some of the elders said, when they bought this land, this was the only place they wanted to settle and raise their families. And they thought this was going to be property that they'll be able to pass down through their families generation after generation. So, along the South Carolina coast, landowners, many of them are descendants of enslaved people that are being targeted by developers looking to make money on vacation getaways and new homes. From Myrtle Beach south to Hilton Head, Black landowners who inherited property have been embroiled in disputes with investors looking to capitalize on raising real estate value. So, Josephine is far from the only one that's going through this battle. So, state reforms approved in 2017 provide what supporters describe as a shark repellent, a law that made it harder for developers to strike deals below value prices with distant heirs who had long since moved away. But skyrocketing property taxes are creating a growing burden as assessments rise. Younger family members may not qualify for homestead exemptions and other tax breaks. Elders worry that their family legacies, established formally by their enslaved ancestors who acquired land despite entrenched racism across the defeated South, are slipping away. Yeah, because they don't want you to have anything to pass down. And that's been their goal this entire time, for them to have all the generational wealth and past everything stolen down, and for us not to have anything. So, most of the hundreds who are still living on, they said right now there are enslaved people in South Carolina living on 450 acres of land, which they can trace through their lineage. Residents enjoy the pace of South Carolina low country and settlement communities where neighbors have long taken care of each other. If we don't take steps to protect them, we're going to lose them parcel by parcel. This is the Coastal Conservation League Executive Director, Faith Rivers James. So, orange mesh, that orange mesh fencing that they put up? Well, they're saying that's like everywhere. So this is where they are trying to rob people out of their land. All right. So, Josephine have this orange mesh encircling her property. The 93-year-old is a matriarch of a family that has owned land in Hilton Head Island since Reconstruction. I'm being surrounded, really, Wright said recently in the Brooklyn accent, where she picked up before returning to her late husband's home 30 years ago in Jonesville, historic Gullah neighborhood. They wanted a tranquil type life, because at that time when they decided to return to the South from New York, her husband was in the beginning stages of having Parkinson's disease. So they wanted to have a more quiet, laid back life for his sake. But gone is the lush greenery that once grew on 29 acres, since owned by other relatives bordering Wright's home. A Georgia based developer, Bailey Point Investment LLC, broke ground last summer with a 147 unit vacation rental complex. So this right here, y'all, is just showing you nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. They're still doing the old trickeries to get us out of our properties. And now, in the beginning of this fight, they had offered Wright like about $30,000 for her land, and her land is worth way more than that, and she knows it. She knows it. So when she refused, this investment company flipped and sued her. All right. So she once had 1 acre of land. She had a home with a screened in porch and a shed and a satellite dish. And they claimed that was an encroachment on her property. So she got rid of her shed and everything. And when it came down to getting rid of her porch, she was like, I'm not doing it. That's when she decided to hire a lawyer. All right. And Associated Press reached out to her lawyer and they did not respond. So she suspects they want to run her off, but she's not intimidated. And we know about Kyrie Irving. He had donated 40,000. Shout out to him. Tyler Perry also got into the fight to help this woman. And the town's officials don't intend to issue building permits until the case is closed. So Bailey just can't move forward and just continue to build at this point. She says other residents have actually thanked her for holding out. She expected to spend her last days in peace in her small home, and she said that is the spot where her family continues to gather on special occasions. She has 40 grandchildren, generations who hope they would enjoy her land, that she would pass down to them. I just want to be able to live here in this sanctuary with a free mind, Wright said. The first self governed town of former enslaved people in the United States was located on Hilton Head Island. Wright's neighborhood gets its name from a Black Civil War veteran named Caesar Jones, who had escaped enslavement and purchased more than 100 acres of land himself, finding refuge in the marshland that had been dismissed by colonists as unsuitable for farming. It's hardly undesirable today. Yeah, they didn't want it back then, but today they're trying to rob these people out of their land and want it. All of a sudden, they need to have this land. Mm-mm-mm. So, ladies and gentlemen, my prayers go out to this lady. I really hope she wins this battle. This developer company, I wish they would have some kind of class action against them for trying to, number one, undercut these people. And then they're out there harassing this woman, trying to get her to, leave her property that she's been on for over 30 years. So developers took advantage in many cases of what's known as her heirs property, land transferred from generation to generation without a will and shared equally. Part owners who numbers ballooned with each branch in the family tree. South Carolina developers could buy their single heirs interest and wind up taking everything from outmatched families suddenly navigating through an unwielded system. Yeah. So heir property is under threat throughout the Black Belt. Roughly 5 million acres over 11 states, worth more than $42 billion collectively, remain in these areas. And of course, the developers are slowly running these folks out. Mm, mm, mm. That's really not much when you think about how long we've been here. It should be way more than 5 million acres. But it probably would have been if many of our people could stay on their land. And in many cases, they didn't even have the option. They couldn't say no, like Josephine Wright. They would just take your stuff anyway. That's how they've always done it in the past. Now, there is another resident, Julia Campbell, 60 years old, has spent 2 decades establishing her family tree to identify every heir, even the slimmest stake in 25 acres on John's Island. Her family has held this land since the 19th century. Former member of the Charleston group established to protect Black cemeteries, emphasized that the ground itself bears witness to history. It's important to her to document, especially at a time when she said some people want to close the book on us. These people could barely read or write or be able to hold on to property, she said. We would be able to hold on to it. South Carolina 2017 reform stymied some predatory behavior, according to Josh Weldon of the Center for Heirs Property Preservation. The Charleston based nonprofit has helped clear titles for over 3,000 tracts worth $17.5 million dollars since 2009. But his most modest estimates suggest about 40,000 tracks remain in the heirs possession. So obviously, people are still looking for land. They are still approaching heir property owners and asking them to sell their land. This is clearly racist. This is clearly racist, y'all. There is no doubt about it. And these folks haven't even changed their tactics. They're doing the same thing historically that their old greasy ass forefathers did. So, y'all, you know, I'm definitely going to make another donation to her, and I'm going to keep making donations until this whole thing is settled. But y'all, please tell me what you think about this story. Mm-mm-mm. Unbelievable. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.